Very emotional story about what's happened to you with New York Rising and Baldwin. For the people here and on the radio, let's hear your story. Bill Lynch, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Howie. And I think what really is applicable here is what Kevin said. This has been a series of catastrophic errors, not just on the back of New York Rising, but pretty much all the agencies involved. But New York Rising has caused a whole series of errors that has led to myself and my family continuing to be displaced 2 years after the storm. My house was registered as being substantially damaged. So it was determined by the town of Hempstead that it's over 50% damaged. We had 10 feet of water. They came in and said, now we have to decide whether we want to elevate or rip down and rebuild. To this day, 2 years after the storm, we still have no idea if New York Rising is going to force us to elevate or if we have to rip it down and rebuild. We don't know. I have an 8-year-old daughter. We've had to rip her out of school. She's up in an apartment in Long Beach now. The roof is coming down. I'm still paying a mortgage, and I'm paying rent. When I go in to New York Rising to find IMA help, they told me back in January I've qualified for IMA help. I haven't seen a dime, not a single dime of IMA assistance since we've been displaced. They gave us a grant award for elevation. They told us the amount back in February. I haven't seen a dime of that money. When I told the people at New York Rising that the first thing you have to do is elevate your house and get a design, get engineers, get plans, get them submitted before anything can be repaired. It was almost as if it was an epiphany for these people, that they never realized that the first thing you have to do is get plans and elevate the house before you start to repair. And we still haven't seen the money. And a big part of this is because the absolute complications they have thrown in with this 6100 form. It's almost impossible for architects and engineers to complete this form. Just as late as September 15th, they changed the calculations on the form to determine whether you're going to be able to rebuild or you have to rip down from 50% to 80%. We already fired one set of architects and engineers because they weren't able to get anything done because everyone is so swamped. We hired a second set back in June, and only last Friday did we get a chance to sit down with them and talk about plans. This is how long it's taken them to complete a 6100 form because of all the changes. I was one of the first people to submit into New York Rising. We submitted our application. Then we waited a month. We heard nothing. We waited another month. We heard nothing. When I finally got someone to call me back, they said our application was canceled and they had to send out another adjuster. And it would take a month. 4 months later, I got another adjuster to come out. And he took a look around and he realized why my application was canceled. Because the pictures that were submitted with the original application showed my house gutted with no floors, and it's on a crawl space. And New York Rising regulations say that their inspectors cannot go into a house with no floors when it's up over 7 feet. My house has a 2-foot crawl space. So when the inspector looked at the pictures, they assumed it was over 7 feet, and they trashed my application. I had to start over. It set me back 4 months. 4 months. I had to start all over again. Meanwhile, I'm on my third apartment in 2 years, and I've got no support from New York Rising. My daughter's in her second school here in Lido. And still, these people wouldn't call us back for 4 months. We were trying to get a hold of our caseworkers for 4 months, emails, phone calls. 4 months, they couldn't be bothered to return our calls. We finally had to resort to getting Assemblyman Brian Curran to make a series of calls before they would even return our calls, just to find out what was going on. And then the people who called I got a call from one of the inspectors because he wanted to come out to my house to see how the repairs were going. He didn't know what to say when I told him we haven't even started yet. My house is gutted. It's got to come down. We're sitting in this shop with the most beautiful tiles you'll ever see. These gorgeous tiles and marble. I'll never get a chance to go shop for that because last week I had to call my mortgage company and start a deed in lieu process because we have no more resources. We're tapped out. I got to throw the keys into my bank. So I'm in an apartment in Long Beach, had a good job, had a good house, great credit rating. That's all gone. Because the people at New York Rising couldn't be bothered to call me back. They couldn't be bothered to let me know that they got rid of their caseworkers, and I had to go track that down. They couldn't be bothered to let me know they were canceling my application. They couldn't be bothered to figure out how to write a check, which we still haven't gotten, for elevation. They couldn't be bothered to help people assist through the 6100 process. They couldn't be bothered to figure out how to get us mortgage assistance for 10 months. So right now, we're still trying to figure out which way to proceed. We don't know from New York Rising if we have the ability to rebuild, if we're gonna have to elevate, or if I can even wait that long. We were hoping to get work started by this October so we can pour concrete in November. But now I'm hearing it's taking them just once the 6100 forms are being submitted, which they now require a full set of architectural plans to be submitted with that. So now I've got to wait until, at the earliest, April to even start. With the additional work that has to be done in the house, the absolute earliest, if everything were to come together, I won't be back in my house until January of 2015. That's the most optimistic viewpoint right now. But because New York Rising has delayed the process for so long and made it so convoluted, our resources are spent, and there's a very good chance that we won't even get a chance to shop for the tiles like we see in here. So we're done. And this is all the way from the top. This is Governor Cuomo, what you heard before about the 50%, that's a phone call to HUD from the New York governor saying, please adjust that. That's an arbitrary number. There's nothing set in stone about 50%. That's a policy. That's a policy that's killing people. And they just decide they don't want to change it for some reason, because maybe it's too much effort to pick up a pen. I talked to a builder down in the West End. He lifts houses. He's done 15 jobs. When I asked him and I said, you must be as busy as you can be. He said, absolutely, and I'm going broke. I said, how are you going broke as a construction worker lifting houses? Because not one person I've worked for has gotten paid for elevation. And the only reason he's doing the job that I saw him doing is because the person was using his own cash. And he goes, I'm only taking this job because I got to pay my back debts because I got 15 jobs I did and New York hasn't paid for one of them. Here's a man working his tail off to help people out, and New York is putting him under. They're killing his business because they can't figure out how to write a check. That's sinful. I get off the phone trying to track down the people for New York Rising. And I'm frustrated and I'm angry. And my 8-year-old daughter comes up to me and she says, Daddy, how come these people hate us? Why do they hate us? How do you tell an 8-year-old about incompetence? How do you tell an 8-year-old that people don't care? I can't explain that to an 8-year-old. They shouldn't have to have that conversation. That's what I'm faced with every day. Can't wake up out of this nightmare. They won't let you. They won't let you go. And they don't care.
I want to thank Bill Lynch for sharing one of the most, in 20 years of radio, that was got to be one of the most heart-wrenching, saddest stories. And there's so many Bill Lynches out there, sadly. And we pray for things to get better for Bill Lynch, but it's so horrible what he's been through. And there's so many more Bill Lynches out there. But Bill, we thank you for sharing, and hopefully people are out there listening, and things will change in the future. We're going to take a break, folks. That is just gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching radio. We thank Kevin Riley and Bill Lynch for sharing, and after the break, we'll be back from Italia Stone after the break. Thank you.